Welcome to the Aquarian Shaman broadcast. I'm Star Wolf, your shamanic host, and I'm here to teach you how to transform yourself and transform the world. Twice a month, we'll be exploring how to develop shamanic psycho-spiritual practices to support transformation while expanding your energy field in a way that can also support others. Each episode offers dynamic experiential guidance and teachings on how to safely enter a natural altered state of consciousness using the sacred breath. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of integration and grounding this medicine into your everyday life. Stay tuned. We're about to create authentic, embodied change that will surely grow corn for the future generations. Welcome to Transformation Network and to the Aquarian Shaman. And I've just lit a little bit of smudge here just to clear the air, so to speak, if you will. And at the beginning of my podcast much earlier in the year, I did a very in-depth calling in the directions and spent probably 10 or 15 minutes with each direction. What that means is calling in the elemental world and the directions of east and south and west and north and above and below and within. And calling in the 7 directions created a safety, if you will, wheel of protection, a medicine wheel for us to journey in, like a spaceship, if you will, for the 12 months together that we're doing this program. The sage itself, for those of you who might just be tuning in, the sage itself is known in many, many different countries and cultures to clear the air, to ask negative or stagnant or stuck energies to leave. And it also opens the portal for new energies to come in. It's kind of like an air freshener, if you will, but not only air, but the element of air and really a soul freshener. So I'm so entrained now to this smell that when I smell it, if I've been crabby or feeling stuck or something just doesn't feel right in a place or with myself, just burning this sage automatically triggers something in a good way in my brain, and I think in probably my DNA that already knows this energy and knows that it's time to go into sacred space. So when we do this ceremony and I just kind of refresh it each time for just a moment or two to welcome everybody into this sacred circle together as we walk the spiral path together. So each time that we're together, I always begin in this way. There's something very important when you're doing ceremony, and that is a certain amount of repetition. It's kind of creating a well-worn road, so that you can find the path. And we do that with the neurons in our brain. We do that with our breath. And we begin to encode and decode the mysteries that are locked within ourselves. So during these times of tremendous change, when they asked me what I wanted to call my podcast, my radio show, I said I want to call it Aquarian Shaman, because at that time my book had just come out, which is my, interestingly enough, 13th book, and from Inner Traditions Bear & Company, just amazing publishers that have published my books over the years. And with the Aquarian Shaman coming out, the story around that is that this is the time that the Aquarian Shamans would need to wake the heck up. If we've been kind of, shoving it off to somebody else and saying, oh, somebody else will save me, somebody else will, do this or do that. Now we can overdo it and become codependent and do things we don't need to be doing and sticking our nose in other people's business about what they need to do. And that, my friend, is called codependency. So that's my addiction side. I have my own recovery around different addictions. And I think that really and truly codependency is probably addiction that almost everybody has, based on shadow and family of origin stuff, even if you had the greatest family. Our whole cultures are pretty much, it seems, has a lot of codependency. And the codependency really means that it's the shadow side of love. And it means that we try to control other people. We don't take care of ourselves. We overgive sometimes, those kinds of things. But the most important thing is to know that usually there's also a good heart there, but there's also a little child usually that's wanting some recognition or safety or to be loved. So recovery from codependency is really a part of becoming an Aquarian shaman, and to do your inner work. That's really important. For many years now, close to 40 years, I've been teaching breath work, and am actually the creator of modern day shamanic breath work itself. And the quite infamous, I might say, SHIP program, which is Shamanic Healing Initiatory Process. Get on, not the good ship lollipop, but get on the ship, and the ship will take you on a journey through your soul. So it's Shamanic Healing Initiatory Process. In fact, tomorrow we get on the plane to go to Egypt to teach our first ship in Egypt. And it's been sold out for many months. If I wasn't a teacher at it, I would still be going as a student because I love Egypt. We go there many, many times. Love it. Go to explore the mystery schools there, taking people. And like I said, our groups sell out pretty quickly. And I've also had the privilege to be a co-author with 3 of my books on shamanic mysteries of Egypt, the Anubis Oracle deck, and shamanic Egyptian astrology. So I have steeped myself deeply into the world of shamanism, breath work, and to the Egyptian mysteries. And there's many others that I've explored, such as going to Peru, going to Machu Picchu, going to be with the white lions, which was an all-time amazing experience, and what holy creatures they are. And hats off to Linda Tucker. Also hats off to and bow to my good girlfriend and sister Aquarian shaman Vera Lopez, who's been taking people to Peru for, I know it's at least 40 years, maybe longer. So we've been in this for a long time. Sometimes we get together, some of us in a room of 3 or 4 of us, and we together have like almost 150 or 200 years of teaching and being with people in these amazing places, Bali and in Iceland and all around the world. So we will also be going back to Egypt next year at the same time to teach the second level of shamanic breathwork skills, which actually trains people to become shamanic breathwork facilitators. So those of you who are out there, if you're already practicing working in the holistic world or the integrative world or the shamanic world or shamanic psychological spiritual world, you might want to come and join us for one of these programs. In the meantime, it's important to me to ask people who train with us. I know there's lots of trainings out there, but to really ask people to drop into their hearts and their inner knowing and their legacies and their lineages, and really drop into that as a part of who they are and what they bring into the world. Not fast food consciousness. I call it, kind of, I'll borrow this language from Stan Groff, who was one of the main founders of breathwork in this country, in the US. And it was talking about fast food consciousness, rush hour traffic consciousness, and that that kind of spirituality is empty. It's a very empty thing. And so it takes a while to transform ourselves. And because it's a spiral path, it's not a one-time job. It's kind of like, if you will, the leaves on the trees here where I am in North Carolina right now. All the leaves are changing. All the trees are preparing to, slow down energetically, put their roots deeper down and hunker down for the winds and the rains and the cold. And even though it doesn't get horribly cold usually, it'll get below freezing. So everything in nature already knows how to nurture itself, how to have grounded roots, how to grow, how to replenish itself, how to bring its fruits or its leaves or its nuts or whatever it brings to the earth, the shade that it brings, and the trees here in North Carolina, they know millions of them, truly millions of trees, breathing to create this beautiful atmosphere and air here. And last year, in September, we had the first that we know of on record hurricane that came up on the coast and came across Asheville, and so many trees tragically, and so many homes, and so much wreckage. But the miracle is how the people pulled together, and people from all around the country came to help. And they're still cleaning up, and they're still doing everything that needs to be done over there. And there's still places where you can donate to. You can look it up on anywhere and find it too, where you can send help to help people get back homes and different things like that. But the trees, thank goodness, that did survive, which was, probably 99%, even after all of those left, those trees create that atmosphere here. And it's a very ancient mountainous range here in the Appalachian Mountains. Some scientists say that it's the oldest mountains in the world. Well, my two favorite places in the world are in the mountains, in this lush environment of these magical trees and forests and freshwater springs and rivers and underground aquifers and waterfalls, all of those things. And my second place that's equal footing is near the ocean. Near the ocean. There's something, isn't there, about the ocean itself and how we go to the ocean, and for really for maybe millennia, but certainly we know for many years it's been well known that people that had lung conditions and chest heart conditions would go with tuberculosis or cancer or whatever ailment they had with their lungs and their whole body too, but especially that, to go and sit wrapped in a blanket by the ocean and breathing in that salty air and the energies of that magical healing elixirs, if you will, that come from over the ocean and over the sea. And all the amazing creatures that are in the ocean and the bottom of the ocean, and all of the crystals. The sand is made of crystals and from stones that have their elemental powers, their sacred gem, the medicines that come from those things, like the stones that we wear, whether it's pearls or the shells that come from the ocean. So everything in nature, all these elders, the trees, the forest, the oceans, all of these beautiful elders, and the original, we call them the original beings that have evolved for hundreds of thousands and millions of years. They truly are the grandmothers and the grandfathers. That's why we look at the mountains and go, the majesty. And so the first peoples knew, because we're all connected to the earth. We all belong to the earth. We may have come from the stars, which I think we probably did, different solar systems, different worlds, but we're all star seeds, if you will. And we've all come here from someplace else. We're travelers. But we're here now, and our souls have decided to have very human experiences. And we definitely know that here in the US. We're in a very human experience, sometimes not very humane. And so I really think that this is a time where we get to really choose if we're going to become that Aquarian shaman or not. If we're just going to let it be dormant, if we're going to be a pod that doesn't open up, if we're going to shrink in fear or anger or grief. And those emotions are legitimate. I don't believe in telling people, don't be sad, don't be angry, don't be mad, don't be, don't be hurt. Those feelings and emotions were given to us as a gift, just as much as happiness and joy and forgiveness and love and excitement and creativity. And those two opposites complement one another, the light and the shadow. The shadow shows us what needs to change, what needs to be accepted first. and loved, forgiven, and then it will transform. It will transform. And when it transforms, so often what's been in our shadow that we couldn't see, but that's been harming us and others around us, becomes the sacred fertilizer that we stand upon. You know, I'll just say it, the holy shit, okay, that we stand upon, and that by standing upon that and owning it, but so it doesn't own us, and letting it go by sharing it with other people, that me too. Our shadow and the darkness is really the basis. It's really where we learn empathy. And in that empathy, we are then able to identify with other people and lift other people up to realize that they too can find their way through the darkness, learn the gifts of the darkness. My gosh, so many things I learned from my mistakes, you know, missteps, you know, those things that are so difficult when someone dies that you love. You know, I've had a husband that passed 11 years ago. Certainly animals that I've loved, beautiful trees that I've loved, people, places, and things sometimes go different directions. Sometimes there's betrayals. Whatever there is, certainly we understand about death. And if we don't, we will never, never celebrate life. For those who frequently, like even in concentration camps, we read these amazing stories of how people were starving and hungry and, you know, malnutritioned and beaten and tortured and all those things. And people still sang, the people still sang their songs. They still prayed. They protected one another. And even when they were, you know, with their last breath, they still had their dignity. And they left a legacy and a wisdom that shows us who we must become. So in this time, especially here in the U.S., it feels like the U.S. needs to be about us, all of us, not just left or right or up or down or black or white or any other colors or genders. It's all of us. And that's the Aquarian dream. That's the Aquarian vision. There is no super race. There is no supreme species. We're all in this together. Back here on my wall, I have this symbol that for our organization, Venus Rising. Venus Rising is called Venus Rising Association for Transformation. And if you look us up, you'll see that we are a ministry, that we have a congregation, and that we have satellites and congregations around the world. And our motto or our chant is one breath, one love, one tribe, or one breath, one love, one tribe, singing that over and over again. And the wolf, if you will, that blue star wolf that's focused there, that wolf is the Aquarian shaman. That wolf is guiding us to remember that we really are the new kids on the block, but that means we have gifts to teach the world. We're now learning from our shadows, from other cultures. We're growing up. We're growing up from being children of God, Goddess, all that is, to being adults of God and Goddess. And I can imagine God, Goddess, great mystery, great spirit saying, whew, it's about time. These kids have about driven me crazy, as they would say in Kentucky, where I'm from originally. These kids have just about driven me crazy. So in this growing up time, I really want to invite you to begin to do a couple of things. A lot of you, if you're watching this, and you know that it's Aquarian Shaman, Star Wolf, and you know me, and you've read my books and things, or attended programs. You already know. You're already, ahead of the game in a sense, and people who are doing, like-minded work around the world. You're already acknowledging that you were this way, and then you begin to wake up and begin to see the things that were not working. That's usually what brings you here. Very seldom people go, oh, I just want to do this. This sounds wonderful. It's usually something has happened and you just can't play the same games you've been playing. And that's the good news. And it may break your heart at first or shake you up, but somehow that it's kind of like a snow globe, where they call them, and you had them at Christmas, and you would shake them, and Santa would be in there, and the snow would be flying around inside. I love that ever since I was a little kid. My grandkids now love to shake those and see that like there's a whole world in there. Well, that's us. There's a whole world inside of us just waiting to come out. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're, my mother just passed in June, and she was 94 when she passed. And up until just that last little bit, she was there. She knew who she was. She knew who the people were around. She talked about being good to people in the world, helping other people. And she always did that sort of thing. She would pick, it used to drive my dad crazy because she would pick up a hitchhiker, somebody in raggedy clothes with no shoes in Kentucky. She'd pick them up in her car and take them to a fast food place, quite frankly, because she didn't have a lot of money, and go through and buy them a burger and get them something to drink. And then frequently she would give them one of Daddy's pair of shoes or shirt. And he would say, please just don't give them my best ones. And please don't put people in the car. You never know. But that's just who she was. And my grandmother was like that before her mother. So we come from a long line of stubborn, hard-headed women who want to do good in the world and who've had our hearts broken. And from that, we realize that we had to do something about the suffering in the world. You see, my mother, she was just a young woman who fell in love at 15 with my daddy when he was 16. They got married when they were 17. And he went off to the war. And she didn't know if she was ever going to see him again. He was in Korea on the front lines. In fact, at one point, they didn't hear from him because he got injured, and they thought he was dead. But when he came home, she was so grateful. And she had weathered through that whole time, helping other people around her who also had their beloveds over fighting in the war. And that changed my mom. And as she grew older, she always had her hand out helping others. She and Dad both worked their whole lives until they were late 60s, early 70s. And in that retirement, they also started a little called non-denominational church in the little town they lived in. And it was a Christian church, which was very sweet and precious. But their work was designed around, and I love this, doing good works in the community. So they would come in, have a short service, but then they would take clothes that they had, canned goods that they had. They would take it to widows or to orphans or elderly, those kind of things. Daddy would always say that, just religion or whatever, spirituality without sacred works in the world was empty. That brings tears to my eyes because that's what I was taught. That just, putting on your feathers and combing your hair up and getting on stage is not enough. I like to dress up a little bit for you all so that I'm pleasant to look at, hopefully. But what I know is what really matters is what's inside of us. And I believe that in most people, most creatures, is goodness. And even in the darkest, that there is a goodness there too. Sometimes it may not show up in certain lifetimes. Sometimes people may be designated to play the villains so that we can remember what is just and unjust. Did you ever think about that? I remember many years ago, many years ago, when I was doing breath work out in California. I'm going to say 20, 25. Well, I've been here in North Carolina 23 years. So probably 25, 26 years ago, whatever it was. I remember being in a breath work, and I remember I was leading it, but we always have several of them. And so I said I wanted to do breathing too. We had enough facilitators. So I laid down and breathed. And the president at that time, I won't say any names, but the president at that time, I had really seen him as a very vile creature, and just doing a lot of things that felt cruel and unnecessary and in the world. So with that, I was breathing and I had no, usually there's something, maybe from my past, or maybe I'm going to a beautiful experience with angels, or I'll have a journey with a wolf or a tiger, or, I'll see grandmother Twyla, my Wolf Clan grandmother, Seneca Wolf Clan grandmother, who's on the other side, will come and bring me a message, something. Or maybe I'll just be bliss out in the whole time and be in a higher state of consciousness and very peaceful. But sometimes what comes is the shadow. And what came was this whole shadow energy where I saw this particular president and he had died. And he was being lifted up by angels into heaven, if you will, into the cosmic world. And I was so blown away, and I was angry about that. I thought, why is he, he's obviously a very unconscious human being, and he's being really vile, and what he's doing is causing many, many people to suffer and even die. Countless of people were being harmed. And I'm not a person that will, just kind of gloss over things. I believe in calling things out, for my own self, and also others, to hold feet to the fire sometimes, especially when we're doing training with people. Like, you got to do the inner work if you want to do our work. If you want to be in the light and teach people the higher teachings, you've got to be familiar with your own shortcomings, with your own missteps and mistakes, and take responsibility with the shadow. So here I am projecting all this energy onto this person, and just not really being able to find anything positive at all about him. At one point, all of a sudden, I saw him born as a child. And then I saw him as a little kid playing, and then with his parents. And then I saw some of the things that may have happened to him as a child. And then I saw how he was groomed to be a politician, and then to play the game that he needed to play, and to get the recognition and all those kinds of things. And then how he went on and did the things he did in his own way. When I say innocent, I don't mean that it was okay or right, but in his own kind of innocence of not knowing how evil some of the things he was doing, that he was playing out a karmic role that he had been assigned to, that he came in specifically to play the adversarial ally. And being that adversarial ally and playing out the shadow, not only the US at that time, but all around the world got to witness that shadow. And because of that, I then saw it, like it go forward to many years later when he would pass, that he was being held up and ascended into, if you will, the pearly gates, whatever that, symbolism is, into a world where he was recognized for what he had done, and that he was then being cared to and tended to, his soul deeply repaired and rejuvenated and healed and brought back into pure love and consciousness. And in the breath work, I remember saying to the angels and to the Creator, why? And they said, there must be darkness and shadow and even evil as it is, in order for powerful light and beauty and transformation and goodness to stand beside it, and to rise up and to say, no, this is not okay. So when we have something to push against within ourselves, or even in the outer world, we call them adversarial allies. That even if they're doing it unconsciously, they're not thinking, oh, I'm going to do this so Star Wolf can be enlightened or can heal or can forgive me, or, whatever, or where she can see the bigger picture of things. That's made, they may not ever have that consciousness. It's not about that. And that's especially some of the things that I'm doing my best to remember right now. that while the world seems to be burning, the whole world seems to be burning, not just here, but around the world, there's so many places where, um, you know, it seems that, uh, as one person in a poem I read a long time ago, it says, when wrong seems to have been elevated everywhere, there is a great light from the cosmos being shining at this time. A great fire is burning, kind of like my new curtains here that look like fire, and the light and the gold and the fire. There is a tremendous wrong happening in all the war-torn countries, and the children that are hungry, and the bombing of people, and all these kinds of things. And regardless of what your politics, you all know that things are reaching a feverish pitch. And it's in that cauldron, it's in that fire that things transmute. They don't transmute without time, pressure, and heat. That's how alchemy happens. Okay? Time with pressure and heat. The pressure is created by the pushing and the heat, the friction. And the same with our souls. So our Aquarian souls, we picked a really big time to be here. And we're not just here to sit on our duff. It could be writing a book. It could be being a singer. I'm not particularly a huge fan. I'm not a Swiftie, so to speak, of the music per se, but I'm a huge fan of her because, if I could have known what she knows at this age already, and to stand up for her principles and who she is, and for her love of her sacred purpose and her work, and for embracing her shadow with this last album, whether people liked it or not, it was for her. It was redemptive. It just feels like that she's setting a really good role model in many ways. And she's not perfect, none of us are, for the feminine. So the feminine in everybody, for that part of us, and to acknowledge that women can be who they are and in charge of their own destiny, and to do their work in the world. So hats off to her, and to all the women and men. My husband is very much a man who respects women. He has to be if he's going to be with me, but he was like that before he met me. So I encourage all of us to make sure that we are living the lives we choose, that we are stepping more and more into who it is we really are, that we're pushing up against our shadows and any old family of origin stuff that's still sticking on, and that's blessing our families for everything we learned, like I just said, the light and the shadow, and to step more into our Aquarian shaman self. In my book, The Aquarian Shaman, I give a lot of different practices in there if you are new to it, or if you've been on the path for a while. I talk about the medicine chest, which is our heart. Learning to live from the heart. It's not about sentimentality. I talk about grounding and how important that is. If you're not grounded, you're too airy-fairy. You're not going to be able to take care of yourself. You're not going to be able to really, truly support others. But then you also have to lighten up, and you have to be able to let go like the trees do every year, and to say, look at my beautiful leaves. They were so green and luscious, and now they're changing colors, and I'm celebrating my life. And then, as gracefully as they do when the rain and the wind comes, to watch all those leaves go until eventually there may not be a single leaf left on that tree. If we let it, the shamanic world will show us how to live. So the Aquarian shaman is the one who's looking at the ancient wisdom that's been here for millennia. Even if this planet has been blown up by, asteroids that have hit it, and it's been extinct several times, like the scientists say, somehow it always comes back around and creates a new eon. And here we are, I believe, on the precipice of a huge new eon that is longing and crying for Aquarius. It's crying for peace, love, forgiveness, understanding. It's crying for soul purpose. It's crying for each one of us and calling each one of us to remember that we are not a mistake. So we must be here on purpose. And to, as Yeshua, who is another name for Christ or Jesus, said biblically, that I must be about my Father's business. When they said, why are you doing this? Or, they were kind of criticizing him. He said, because I must be about my Father's business. I will say that for me, I must be about and for my mother, father, God, goddess, great mystery. It's business. And that's what I choose in my life, one day at a time, to the best of my ability. Some days falling very short, and some days feeling that maybe something I'm saying or doing or sharing is creating some impact for someone somewhere. And even if it's one person, that's a lot. One person, sometimes it says, can't do that much, and that's just not true. Now, it's always nicer to have a group. With Aquarius energy, it's about group energy. It's not just about one star shining. It's about having a whole array of a sky, a dark sky full of, beautiful stars shining instead of just one. But each person is that star. Everybody is a star. There's a song about that. Everybody is a star. And that star energy, star consciousness, is about remembering who we really are. So I want to invite you right now out there, if you're listening to this and you're asking yourself, who am I really? Right now I'm a hot mess, or this has happened, or he's left, or she's left, or this is not going well, or I don't know how to bring my magic to the world, or I don't know how to find a way to really bring what I know is inside of me out. I really want to encourage you, whether it's with us at Venus Rising or someone somewhere, let them light your fire. And maybe yours has gone down. Maybe your fire is still burning. Let them blow on the fire. But let this be an important time in your life when everything is going so cray-cray. Let this be a time where you find sanity, where you remember who you are, where you remember, not to just discover, but you remember the original blueprint that's in your own soul. And then find your teachers. Have that humility. I've studied with many teachers. I studied with teachers since I was in my 20s. And I still hang out with people that are, I'll be 73 this year. I hang out with people that are young because they know a lot, especially technology. But I also still hang out with the elders. I just visited grandmother Blue Star, who's going strong, and she's headed to 90s. My breathwork teacher, Jacqueline Small, just had her 90th birthday. I was with my mom, who's very wise and spiritual. She just passed in June. She was 94. Find the elders in your life who have been committed to this planet and to the Aquarian energy and transformation, and say, will you be my teacher? Or may I come and study and work with you? Or, what kind of offerings do you have? Or those kinds of things. Find what you resonate with. And then go for it, whether it's just simply reading the book and doing practices, whether it's going to workshops or trainings, or going to be in ceremonies, or to go on magical mystery tours. Do something. Go sit out under a tree and wrap your arms and legs around it for a while. Go put your feet in the water, in the cold water, the cold, fresh spring water. Go out and find an insect that you've never seen before. I found an insect shortly after my mother passed that looked like a fairy. I thought it was a fairy flying around in the house. It was dark, and we turned the light on, and I took a picture of it. It looks just like a fairy. I was afraid to touch it. And I really felt like that insect somehow was my mother coming back as a fairy to say hello to me right after she had passed. Find something that nobody else has found. Yourself. No one can do that but you. So wherever you are right now, if you are driving, keep your eyes open. But if you're not driving, and if you're not walking, and if you are in a place where you're sitting back and listening to this, or lying in bed listening to this, or sitting by a river, or you know, in the woods, or wherever you are. Maybe you're in the airport and you've got your ear pods on. You can still do this. I'd like to just finish up with a little short journey here before we close. I want to invite you to take a nice big deep breath and then exhale. Shamanic breathwork is something I birthed close to 40 years ago, and I've been teaching it around the world so that people can remember that the shaman is within as well as without, and awaken the Aquarian shaman within. So let that be your intention for this moment. And with your eyes closed, breathing in and breathing out, breathing in and breathing out. And just keep breathing as I speak to you. Imagine a golden light of orb encircling you and protecting you. And we've already called in the east, south, west, north, above, below, within. We've called in the water and the earth and the fire and the air and the spirit. You might take your hand and place it gently on your heart. And breathe. Let a nice big exhale out. And in this space, imagine for a moment that you're in some place in nature that you choose to be. And there's creatures surrounding you. For instance, right now, I can hear the last little peeps of the frogs and the crickets and the insects, their last songs here in the mountains for this year. I'm seeing the leaves turning now, beginning brown and red, and leaves flying through the wind. Imagine that your old self is ready to dissolve, to transmute. And listen to your heart for just a moment as you breathe. Ask for what you need, and if you don't know, then you can say to the Creator, this is what I think I need, but this or something better. Sometimes I feel like I know exactly what I'm asking for help with, or need to see, or a vision. Sometimes an animal or a creature comes, or a spirit guide. Just see what happens as you breathe. And if there's something coming to you, a leaf, a crystal, a wolf, a fairy, a goddess, whatever it is, the energy of love, ask it if it has a message for you now. What is that message? Sometimes instead of words, it's a symbol. It could be something you're familiar with, or something you've never seen, you don't know what it is, or that you feel something and you're not sure yet. And as you're ready, take a nice big deep breath, hands on your heart. And if you will, just kind of firmly rub that area in your heart and let it be inside of your heart now, your medicine chest. Take another deep breath. Exhale fully. Slowly come back. And as you're ready, open your eyes. We're going to be ending in just a couple of minutes. And as that happens, I want to invite you to draw something on paper or to write something down or to share with a friend. Because when you do that, it will solidify that energy and bring it from the ethers and from your heart into the outer world as manifestation. I love to draw the image. I do a mandala with some crayons or pencils or whatever. And then put it where you can see it all the time. Walk by the refrigerator, on the back of your toilet lid, on the ceiling, someplace where you're going to see it. So thank you for letting me share today kind of the heart and soul of the Aquarian Shaman, at least within my own heart, within my own Venus rising, wolf tribe. Thank you for joining us today and being a part of it. And I truly hope and pray for you that you have allowed and given permission your inner Aquarian Shaman to guide you. And maybe you are already being guided, but may you be guided even more so. And may you remember that you're not alone. There's about 8 billion of us on this planet, and hidden inside of the DNA and hearts and souls and spirits and bodies of all those people, even the ones we don't like, in every creature and being, there is an Aquarian Shaman waiting to awaken. Aho. This is Star Wolf, and you've been listening to the Experiential Aquarian Shaman broadcast. Transform yourself, transform the world. Join me every second and fourth Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio to awaken your inner Aquarian Shaman. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to my channel and connect with me on social media at Linda Star Wolf. For more information about my offerings and trainings, visit shamanicbreathwork.org. Thank you for taking this special time to journey with me.